In 1984, Professor Alec Jeffreys discovered a new method of finding out the genetic variation in individuals.
Separating the repeating sequences, Jeffreys and his team realized that each pattern was unique to every person, ensuring a 99% accuracy rate. This method is otherwise known as DNA profiling. This revolutionary discovery did not have to wait long to be put to use when two 15-year-old girls, Linda Mann and Dawn Ashworth, were found raped and murdered 3 years apart in Leicestershire, a few miles away from Jeffreys' lab. The police suspected the two murders to be connected and to have been carried out by the same person. A mentally unwell 17-year-old named Richard Buckland confessed to the murder of the two girls and then recanted his confession. In an effort to find the truth, investigators contacted Alec Jeffreys, intrigued by a new method of using DNA to identify a killer. He took blood samples from Richard and compared it to semen samples found on both the girls' bodies, and found not only that the murders were committed by the same man, but that Richard was not their guy. He became the first person to be ruled out using DNA testing. In August 1978, a pub customer overheard a conversation of a man who gave blood on behalf of a friend during a murder investigation. This led to Colin Pitchfork, a 27-year-old father of 2. He was arrested and had his blood taken for testing. It came back as a match, and he also confessed. He pled guilty and was given 2 life sentences. This was the first ever criminal case solved using DNA profiling, and it has only brought more attention to the method since then. One of the most notable cases was of a rampant serial killer, whose reign of terror caused his capture to be substantial to the growth and usage of DNA profiling, specifically genetic genealogy, in criminal cases.
Sacramento, June 18, 1976, 5 a.m. The East Area Rapist strikes for the first time. The victim, a 23-year-old woman alone in her home. From 1976 to 1978, the East Area Rapist terrorized the East Sacramento area, and after a 2-year reign of terror with a victim count of 22, the East Area Rapist disappeared. But in the February of 1978, Katie and Brian Majori were walking their dog and interrupted the East Area Rapist while he was exiting a home. A conflict transpired, and as they both fled, they were shot and killed. This was the East Area Rapist's first murder, and ever since then he spiraled into a killing spree, becoming the Golden State Killer. The Golden State Killer's attacks mainly consisted of him breaking into a home, usually of a couple, bounding the male and raping the female, and then killing both. He also left a track by purposefully ransacking homes he invaded and calling and mocking his victims following the attack.
This was one of the many phone calls he made to his previous victims.
Hello? Hello?
His murders continued until 1986 in Irvine, California, where Janelle Cruz was found beaten, raped, and bludgeoned to death in her bed. She was the last known murder victim of the Golden State Killer. From 1978 to 1981, the Golden State Killer took the lives of 13 people. Afterwards, the case went cold and the Golden State Killer went off the radar.
The case slowly disappeared from the media, but it found itself back in the eye of the public after the release of the book I'll Be Gone in the Dark. The book's author was Michelle McNamara, the youngest of 6 in an Irish Catholic home in Oak Park, Illinois. Michelle, an aspiring writer, first became intrigued with true crime after a young woman was found brutally murdered in an alleyway not too far from her home. She married the comedian and actor Patton Oswalt, and they had a daughter named Alice. She soon became hooked on the Golden State Killer case and was the very person to dub him the Golden State Killer. She dedicated her life to uncovering his identity, working days and nights over her computer. This fixation of the case clearly took a toll on her health, and on April 21st, 2016, she passed away suddenly in her sleep from a combination of prescription medications and an undiagnosed heart condition. She was aged 46. Her book was finished by her husband Patton and was published on February 27, 2018. It became a #1 bestseller. The book released 2 years after her death, only 2 months before the Golden State Killer was caught. Michelle's book, as well as the new name she gave the serial killer, brought new eyes and a new interest to the case, including to a woman named Barbara Ray Venter. It fueled the demand of the public to find the face that tormented so many for decades. And equipped with more advanced, outdated technology and new detectives, a new investigation was kick-started, and the search for the Golden State Killer began once again.
To identify a suspect, crime scene investigators use biological material found in crime scenes like blood, hair, feces, or skin to extract DNA that is then cut up in small pieces using enzymes. DNA is then attached to probes which will stick to the sequences. The DNA pattern is then revealed by being exposed to an X-ray film, as done in earlier versions of DNA profiling, or using fluorescent dye to isolate the probes. Either way, this results in finding patterns that are unique to one person. Usually this DNA can be compared with the suspects to connect or rule them out. It can also be put into a police database to connect the DNA to past offenders. In this case, the perpetrator did not have a criminal background that could link back to him, so the investigators were stumped. This is where Barbara Ray Venter comes in, a retired patent attorney living in Northern California, who used the genetic genealogy website GEDmatch to find the Golden State Killer.
Get started in 3 simple steps. First, take a DNA test and download the results as a DNA data file. Next, upload the file to GEDmatch for processing. Within 24 hours, you'll have access to a suite of DNA tools, allowing you to delve deeper into your results. Compare your DNA to everyone on the site, or to a specific person, or find matches that are related to 2 different people, and much.
The DNA of the Golden State Killer was put into the GEDmatch database, and from this came a match to a 4th cousin related to the Golden State Killer.
The specific DNA testing method used to track and identify the Golden State Killer is a branch from the original DNA profiling called genetic genealogy.
Genetic genealogy is the use of DNA profiling, DNA testing, and genealogical methods to determine biological relationships between people. This can range from finding a biological parent as an adoptee, finding a distant relative or ancestor, or for paternity tests. These advantages of genetic genealogy became popular and accessible to the public with the creation of sites like 23andMe, Ancestry.com, and MyHeritage. From there, you can upload this DNA to websites like GEDmatch to find and connect family members with the same DNA as you. Using this technology, investigators and authorities were led to a man named Joseph D'Angelo. A damage control man for the Navy during the Vietnam War and a former police officer, D'Angelo was thought of as an average Joe, as his former police chief recalled. Nothing he said or did in his time as a police officer would have foreshadowed his later actions. Although in his later years, in his home with his daughter and granddaughter, neighbors recount his very detailed and precise mowed lawn, also regarding his frequent outbursts. D'Angelo was arrested in 2018 at his Citrus Heights, California home. He pled guilty to 13 counts of murder and 13 rape-related charges, and was to take accountability for his other uncharged crimes, including 50 rape victims and over 150 burglaries. And after over 4 decades, he was sentenced to 11 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. This case has garnered attention, both good and bad. Due to the high-profile case, people have been concerned about their privacy and how easy it was for investigators to obtain their DNA.
Due to this, GEDmatch updated their terms of service, adopting an opt-out policy that allows users to decide whether or not they want to share their DNA information and results with law enforcement.
This also caused other big DNA testing websites to come out to make statements on their position with sharing DNA information with law enforcement. Despite the controversy, this case also had great outcomes. Since D'Angelo's arrest, genetic genealogy has emerged as a major crime-fighting tool, and over 150 suspects have been identified as of June 2020.
The discovery of DNA profiling will forever be a turning point in the advancement of forensic technology and the identification of individuals. In most impactful cases, DNA profiling has helped to solve our cold cases, the one no one ever believed could be put to rest. From the identification of Jane and John Doe to the ruling out of wrongly accused suspects, to bringing justice to the guilty, DNA profiling has been very effective and reliable in identifying individuals with a 99% accuracy rate. Police, crime scene investigators, forensic scientists, and thousands of families will all continue to benefit from the work of Jeffries and his team, which will continue to be the turning point of DNA testing as the technology advances.